Hello and welcome to the Final Frontiersman, a YouTube channel about all things Trek. Today, we are going to be doing a review of Star Trek Prodigy Season 2. We're a little late, that's all my fault, but it's been a long time coming. It's a series I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and for that express purpose, I have a special guest joining me today. So it's not just me rambling to the camera alone. I get to discuss it with someone who I haven't talked about the series yet. So welcome to the channel, Patrick Goodman, a good friend of the channel and a fellow Star Trek YouTuber. Patrick, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Bill, or in your case, morning, because you live in the future.
I'm in the future.
My name is Patrick Goodman. I'm, as he said, I'm a YouTuber. On my channel is called the Trekkie Gamer. I'm also a freelance writer for the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game and a lifelong Trekkie. So I am pleased as anything to be here tonight.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for putting up with the very long delays in getting this scheduled. Of course, with our living in two different time streams makes it hard to coordinate sometimes, but we got it. We're here.
Indeed.
Before we go in, just a little preamble. This is going to be a review, so we decided we'll start off with just general impressions, and then we'll move on into more spoiler topics. So if you have not seen Star Trek Prodigy Season 2 yet, the beginning of this video will at least still be safe for you to listen to. Once we start moving away into more spoiler things, we will mention that first, so you could switch us off if you haven't done so already. So here we go. So why don't we just get into it. Again, general impressions, Star Trek Prodigy Season 2. Second season was basically canceled after season 1. Netflix picked it up, aired the episodes because it was made, but Paramount Plus dropped it. Now the future is in question. Are we getting a season 3 or is this the end? So that's the state where we are going into season 2. Patrick, why don't you tell me, just again in general, no spoilers in that, what were your impressions for this season, or maybe even just the series overall?
Well, in both cases, it was, while it's marketed, as a Nickelodeon early teens TV show, this is some of the best Star Trek on television.
Oh yeah,
right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Period. And that's, we've had 5 or 6 different series over the past 7 or 8 years. This is easily the most solid bit of work. It started out a little, the first season started out a little funny. You kind of had the premise: what happens if a bunch of Star Wars characters find themselves actually in a Star Trek series?
Yeah.
But it worked.
It worked.
It worked.
It grew, and it became something that worked far better than I imagined when I started watching.
But it is a remarkably solid piece of work from front to back. The people who make it, you can tell, love Star Trek. They know what they're doing. They know what they want.
Yeah.
And they've got a bunch of people that know what they want and how to get there. Just from a simply artistic, just looking at it viewpoint, the animation is some of the most beautiful I have seen in years.
Yeah.
And they take advantage of that. They actually use their medium very well. Some of this stuff, you could pull it off in live action.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could easily do that with the state of effects these days, but they really push what they do, and it's a phenomenal starting point. If you've got someone who is not a real a Star Trek fan, just hasn't been exposed. They're young. My kids love, they haven't seen season 2 yet because we have, we have some problems with Netflix over here, but they will be seeing it when the physical media comes out in November. But they absolutely adored the first season, and I have no doubt that when they finally get a chance to see the second season, they're going to flip.
Yeah, like you said, especially younger viewers. I mean, not exclusively younger viewers, but especially younger viewers. This is a great jumping on point for the entire franchise, because the beginning of season 1, pretty much episode by episode, it slowly introduces another very major element or trope or just thing from the Star Trek universe and explains it, because like you say, it's kind of like Star Wars type characters being thrown into the Star Trek universe. So these characters, they're not Federation, they don't work on starships, they don't know what this technology is, they're a younger crew, they don't have this experience. So the episodes kind of introduce to you like all the main points of Star Trek's technology, the future, the society, step by step. So for younger viewers, you got that whole attraction of, first, it's a beautiful animation, characters that are fun, characters that are young, youthful, and they're not these uptight, stiff officers. They are a fun cast of misfits. So that's something that younger kids could get into. Plus, any viewer, any new viewer, you don't really have to feel like you know Star Trek. So you get these people who are kind of on your level. They don't know anything about it, and you're there with them learning about the world. And that's kind of like the first half of season 1. And when I started watching season 1, first half, I thought, yeah, it's okay. It looks nice. It's okay. It's great for kids. It's not really my cup of tea. It was just moving a little too slow for me. It wasn't bad by any means, but it wasn't what I was looking for my own Star Trek entertainment. But then once you hit that midpoint in season 1, and pretty much the audience is all caught up with what Star Trek is, if they're brand new to it, then you start really rolling into the plot, and the show from that point on through season 2 does not slow down one bit. And it grew into, like you said, it's one of the best and most solid pieces of Star Trek on TV currently, and really for the entire franchise. I mean, this is staying true to the course, and it's entertaining throughout. So jump in, season 2. Here we go.
Indeed.
What do you think?
Oh, I am so glad this found a home, because this was this was, you wanted to see what happened, and it was a fun story. They did a few things that I was not expecting. How some people managed to keep some of the things a secret.
Yeah,
is like, oh wow, their NDAs are really strong.
They must be, because nothing leaked out.
Because there's a whole lot of stuff there. It's like, oh wow, they managed to tie a lot of things together to other Trek series. I mean, obviously you've got Janeway and Chakotay, so you wound up with a lot of Voyager tie-ins from the very first episode of the first season. You start getting that, but some of the baddies in season 2 bear more than a passing resemblance to some of the baddies in certain other fairly recent series. I don't want to get too specific, because we're still in non-spoiler territory. But some of the bad guys bore more than a passing resemblance to existential threats from other shows.
Oh yeah.
In recent memory, I love the fact that they played more with the legacy, and I love a couple of the decisions very late in the season, with tying things in. They went in a direction I really did not see them going.
I think I might know what you're referring to, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that soon enough.
Oh, almost certainly. Yeah. But as a season, it was an extremely solid season.
Yeah.
Like I say, one of the best overall seasons that any of the recent shows have turned in.
Oh yeah. I found myself consistently, when an episode ends, wanting to know what's happening next. It's like when you're reading a good book and you get to the end of a chapter and you just can't stop. You need to get another chapter in. You want to see what is going to follow what you just saw.
Then at least the one good thing about the Netflix binge model is that you can do that. I'm still not particularly fond of it. I really like the weekly aspect that the other shows on Paramount Plus do, because it gives people a chance to talk about it.
Yeah.
You get an episode. That's the one thing that I found fault with the Netflix presentation, was everything was there. You can watch it in a day. Your brain will melt, but you can watch it in a day.
I would say, for me personally, I like the binge watch model with these new series where one season is basically one story, because it's, as I mentioned in other videos in that about these series like Picard, Discovery, you're telling a single story. There's a little side stops here and there, but your entire season is one story. So to me, it's like you have just one enormous episode. So I prefer if they drop everything there, so I could watch it at my pace. I can stop where I want to in this long story, rather than get halfway into a storyline and then they stop me and I have to wait a week, have to hope it stays in my mind. Where did we leave off? What's going on there? I like saying my pace. But when it's saying like Strange New Worlds, where it's not really a single story, it's more episodic, I prefer weekly. So I have a whole week to think about an entire story that finished, what came, and then looking forward to something starting fresh again. So for me, I like it in this sense. But if it's episodic, then I'm fine with week by week.
Yeah, that's just me. I think it disrupts the conversation, the fandom conversation.
Yeah,
because not everybody's pace is the same.
Yeah.
Like I said, you can watch it in a day. It took me a week or so to get through everything, just because I was hitching a ride on to watch it, and I was, working my day job. It's like,
it was about 2 weeks for me, because I don't get full control of the TV with all the girls in this house, so I have to wait for my moments to get Netflix.
I understand that. I'm just glad that I've got the capability of watching a lot of stuff on my computer.
Yeah.
So when I want to do something that nobody else wants to watch, I can just come in here and settle down and watch it in here. But I said that was my only real complaint, was just was the binge model. But that's, as these things go, a minor thing. I'm just from just the story and the character aspects, it was wonderful. I was thoroughly entertained from beginning to end this season. And
same. I do have I don't know if I want to say complaints or nitpicks, but I do have some downsides on a lot of things. Even things I loved about this season, I also have some things that I didn't quite enjoy as much, and we're going to talk about that soon. But I agree with you. I from start to finish, it was solid. I was entertained the whole way. I loved the story. I loved the characters. I loved the design. I loved the surprises, and it stayed thoroughly Star Trek. It's whatever you saw at the beginning of season 1 of like, oh, these are Star Wars like characters in the world of Star Trek. By the end of season 2, it is pure Star Trek. And it is, like you say, it's an amazing addition to this franchise. I think we gave the impressions as well as we can give without going into detail and spoilers now. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Come back if you want to hear our thoughts on like little details throughout. We're not going to go episode by episode. We're just going to talk about broad topics or specific items from the season. So if you want to come and hear what we say after you see it, please, by all means, do. If not, please take our glowing review of how much we enjoyed it and inspire yourself to go watch it and see if you feel the same way, which I hope you do. With that said, spoiler territory.
Here we go.
In case it's one of my many viewers who has turned on the video and has just fallen asleep, I'm just going to call out a red alert so the alarm wakes you up, lets you know that there are spoilers coming now. There's nothing in this red alert other than to say spoilers coming. Get away if you don't want spoilers. Okay, stand down, red alert. There we go. All right, spoiler time. What would you like to talk about first?
Oh gosh, where do we start?
Exactly. I have a whole list of things here, but I will leave it to you, sir.
Well, like, I'm gonna just jump in, kind of in the middle, because for a couple episodes, I could have sworn they were talking to Future Guy from Enterprise.
I was thinking that too. I was thinking that was going to be part of it.
It's like they are talking to Future because we already had Daniels show up.
Yep.
At the end of Discovery.
Yeah.
Which, slight detour. Loved that. It's like anytime you can bring Enterprise into it and make it fit. It's like, son of a gun.
Yeah. I don't want to go into Discovery, but I was wondering who is he? Like, it's going to be someone. Please don't make him Q. And then you find out he's Daniels. I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm down with that.
I really like that. But so when Wesley Crusher walks out of that door, it's like, you have got to be kidding me. And then they made him an interesting character.
They did. They made him a unique character.
They did not make the mistakes they made in Next Generation, a lot of which we can lay squarely at the feet of Rick Berman. But they took the premise of his joining the Travelers and did something with it.
Yeah.
They did something with it, which was
amazing.
Which was so much fun. And it's like, oh, he is having a high old time right now. He is having a lot of fun playing this character.
And I like that we catch a glimpse of him in Picard season 2. So they remind us he's still out there. He's still doing that traveler thing. And now you get to see really what the Travelers do. I've always loved Wesley as a character, even when people hated him. I always liked watching his path in Next Generation and what became of him. And I'm a huge fan of Will Wheaton's. Like I've been seeing him in various things, especially like as a tabletop gamer. He had a YouTube tabletop series a number of years ago. So I've always liked him. Having him back and as a major part of this season was just pure gold for me. He was a unique, interesting, new version of Wesley, new version of what a traveler is, and it makes the travelers seem a heck of a lot more exciting and interesting than we got a glimpse of in Next Generation.
Yeah, well, you didn't have the money for
well, yeah,
so, but for what they wound up doing in Prodigy, they couldn't have done that.
No,
in Next Generation.
Not this level, no.
Not like this. But you've got him. You've got the Loom, the bad guys, who, like I said, not necessarily. Well, they are big bads, but they are not necessarily the big bad of the season. But they bear more than a little bit of resemblance to the things they were facing in season 2 of Discovery, first season of Picard at the end. These tentacly, not identical, but there's enough of a resemblance. They're going, okay, I begin to see what the Romulans were scared about in the first season of Picard.
It's a thing that's popped up again and again in these new series. There are a lot of similar elements, not exactly the same, but similar elements that I've heard other people mention, other reviewers mention, that it sounds like the different shows are not talking with each other because there's like a lot of overlap in design choices or plot choices. Like in Prodigy season 1, what was it? Lower Decks season 3, 4, and then Picard season 3 all feature a thing about Starfleet ships being taken over by like a mass collective as the big threat at the end. And now this is another thing, like you said, we had in Discovery season 2 with the whole like AI thing. We had Picard season 1 with control with Picard season 1 with the robot tentacles from beyond, and now we have the Loom, which is a slightly different aspect of it. It's not really AI, it's not really technology, it's something that exists in the time stream. It's like a time stream based entity. But
I'm willing to bet they're in the same union.
They probably they probably go to like the same clubs and mingle together. But I will say that I loved. I thought, like you said, they're not really the big bad, but they are like the threat of the season. They're not the antagonists, but they're the threat that is created by all the events going on. I thought it was interesting. I love the way they do it, but this is going to lead to one of my first gripes, complaints. I don't know if you want to say negatives, downsides, whatever you want about the whole Wesley and the Loom thing. Well, first of all, the one point that's not really the gripe is, but just an observation. They really made Wesley's Traveler feel like the Star Trek Doctor Who. They created this quirky, out of time, out of place character with all these powers and this vast intelligence, and then they give him a threat, an enemy that is a time-based enemy. And I saw, like, when I was watching it, like, this is like if Wesley Crusher became Doctor Who. Then not too long ago, I saw a quote by Will Wheaton saying that it was basically an homage to Doctor Who because he's
they came out and said that was deliberate. I was okay with it. But you could definitely see where they were filing on the serial numbers.
Yeah. But what leads to my complaint is, from what we saw of all these years of Wesley, and that the character we got on screen was not Wesley. The character we got on screen was Will Wheaton. There was no performance of Wesley there. If you watch anything of Will Wheaton acting like Will Wheaton, that's what you got on screen for Prodigy.
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that.
He did not bring out the Wesley character. It didn't feel like, and I mean, he's of course lived through lifetimes and things that we don't know, but I would have preferred if there was a more, I think he went a little, and I'm not saying I didn't like it. I just think he went a little too over the top in the Doctor Who performance, and he just played himself in that sense. He didn't play Wesley as a Doctor Who type character. He played Will Wheaton as a Doctor Who type character.
Yeah.
And I love Will Wheaton, and I love Wesley, and I love Doctor Who, but it was jarring to me because I've seen so much Will Wheaton that I couldn't see anything but him. I didn't see Wesley at all.
Yeah, I honestly, I think we got a little more Wesley at the end of Picard season 2 when he made his little cameo there. He seemed a little more
subdued, a
little more like Wesley, and I'm not sure how much of that was because Will just wanted to be Will, and how much of it was because of the designated target audience. That they might have wanted to play it a little broader, a little wackier.
Oh, I think it fits well in Prodigy. I think it definitely does in the tone they set for the series, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I can see the problem there, but overall, I was just enormously pleased that they took that swing. I mean, that was a big swing. Another big swing.
I'm pleased they made him a huge part of the series. That was the surprise.
Oh yeah, he's an important. This wasn't just a little fan service cameo. Yeah. This was significant. The other swing that I was surprised they made, and I was impressed the way it happened, was the last episode.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Hi, let's talk about let's talk about the attack on Mars.
Yeah,
that was not someplace I expected
I was taken by surprise
show to
myself. Go. Yeah,
it's like, oh look, it's First Contact. Oh crap, it's First Contact Day. It's
something bad's happening.
And then all of a sudden the red alert sirens started going, oh, I see what's going on now. But that was, the fact that they acknowledged it, firmly fixed where in the franchise timeline that the show takes place. But that was a very dark place to go.
Yeah, especially because the ending of the final episode, which I love the final episode, I thought it was a great conclusion. The whole ending felt like it was wrapping up the series. And I was like, oh, I know they're trying to get a season 3, but did they add this later once they knew they were canceled just to make sure it ties up in a nice, neat bow?
That was not the impression I got from just. I can see where that idea could come from, but from just the way they were putting things together, and the fact they had the season already written when Paramount Plus pulled the plug, and most of it already in the can. I mean, they had most of it already done. I don't think they actually added that on.
No,
just in case.
I don't think they did. It just felt that way because they basically wrapped up all the character stories. There was nothing left, and then that's when the Mars attack comes, and I see where this is going now. They're shifting the direction.
Yeah, but I I don't get the feeling, they're trying to wrap things up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you get right down to it, where they ended season 1, if for some reason season 2 had never happened, the way season 1 ended was actually quite
it was pretty
quite satisfying.
Yeah.
It's like,
and they lost the ship too.
I would be sad,
Mm-hmm.
but things really aren't left hanging.
Yeah.
You know what's going on. Gwyn is going to go off and be this ambassador to Solum, and the other kids are at the academy prep school, getting ready to move into the academy. And it was, it's like, if nothing else had ever come of that, it was a great ending.
Yeah.
And
that works.
If we never get a season 3, which I would love a season 3, and if they can keep the quality up, onward. I adore these characters.
Yeah. They're growing on me. I like
even the annoying one. And I pick on Dal, but I identify with Dal.
Mm-hmm.
I was people look at me and say, "Oh, you're a freelance writer." It's like, I don't read very well. I'm a lousy student. I want to get things done. When I was in elementary and into high school, the basic premise was, on Monday you get a new concept, on Tuesday you get a variation on that theme, and you do that whole thing for a week. I'd get a 98 on the first day's homework, and it's like, I've done this already.
Yeah. Why should I do it again?
And I got out of school with a high C average. Mm-hmm. It's like, Patrick, your IQ is blah. It's like, yeah, I know. And I was bored senseless. My 6th grade English teacher finally figured out that I was bored senseless. We were in a unit on King Arthur. Everybody else was getting the watered down version, and I had already read through the watered down version because it was only about that thick. And and I read that like the first day or two, and along about the 3rd or 4th day, Mrs. Killen came around and she dropped Mallory on my desk. It's like, okay, this is what you're doing.
There you go.
I was like, oh, okay, Mallory, because it's that thick.
Giving you something that's appropriate for you.
Yeah. So I mean, I identified with Dal.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are going, "Oh God, Dal, grow up." It's like, I get it. Yes, it's annoying. Yes, you want him to go to class and do this thing, but I completely understand sitting out on the quad watching the shuttles take off and head out of the atmosphere and wondering, I wonder how my girlfriend's doing. I should give her a call, But but to circle back around to what I had started to say, even if we don't get that season 3, I can be happy because this portion of the story is told.
Yep, it's pretty much tied up.
That portion. Well, season 1, that portion of the story was told. That was tied up. You move into season 2, it's like, oh, okay, this is what's going on now. You've got this, 8-year-old Brickar who's showing that she is absolutely a genius because she's doing things that other Starfleet scientists haven't even thought of doing yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's a distinct beginning.
Yep.
You kind of have to see season 1 to understand where we're beginning in season 2, but season 2 starts off clean. You take a few minutes to figure out. You take a few minutes to figure out who these characters are. You don't necessarily have to have season 1 because they do enough referring back to things that happened you know, oh, hey, Protostar self-destructed. We just created a time rift 52 years in the future. But they took a few minutes to explain what was going on. And there you go.
It works.
But it's like, so it's beautifully self-contained, and you still get the impression of a much bigger story.
And I like even with the Mars attack at the end, that's not really, like you say, it's pinpoint where it is in the timeline, but that's not really the direction they're going with it. They're using that as like, this is the event that's setting the course for a possible season 3, or where they would be in season 3.
Yeah.
Which again, that looks like it would be another fresh start, because now we have the setup for what they are going to be doing. They're going to be basically cadets on this ship.
They're commissioned officers. They've been field commissioned.
Yeah, that's right. Field commissioned. It's interesting. I know shows little twists that they do for the Star Trek series that you always get.
Well, field commissions are real things.
Oh, I know they're real things, but I think a whole ship of cadets field commissioned just to go out for a specific adventure is a little bit of a stretch.
To do the specific exploration. But I mean, it's like, okay, I see where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, because we know where a lot of things go in Starfleet from this point for the next 15 years.
Pretty much where it's going to end up at the very least, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, because everything that happened in 3 seasons of Picard started on Mars.
Yeah.
And we know where that winds up. So, I mean, you've got that 15, 16-year span from 2385 to 240102, whenever they... I can't remember exactly when the 3rd season of Picard ended, but you got that 15... You know that things get dark.
Very much, yeah.
A lot of things happen that are in... a bad place, and that's another thing that happens in real life. Is like, things spiral in sometimes.
Yeah. So I would like to see what happens in that time span before things get to that point. And I think that's one of the failings of these new series, that again, one of my biggest complaints is that one season, one story aspect of a lot of these new series. And it's not just Star Trek, it's a lot of new series out now.
It's a streaming thing.
But the one thing, the way it hurts a franchise like Star Trek is it narrows down the galaxy to this fine point, because you get like 10 hours of a show, but you're only getting one tale. You're not exploring the galaxy, you're not fleshing it out. And that was the thing that, of course, the old series did. Like, it was just due to the nature of TV, it was just episodic.
Yeah.
And you're exploring something new, you're growing your vision of what the Star Trek universe is with each and every episode. This one, it's only the things that pertain to one particular story. And that means we still have a 15-year stretch of so much we can explore of where the Star Trek universe is at this point.
That's kind of why I like how Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks are doing things. You've got this big overarching thing, but every episode is its own thing. And to an extent, Prodigy is the same way. I mean, it's more of an overarching story, but each episode stands alone
there were definitely a lot more, not filler, but there were a lot more side episodes in Prodigy, and I think because they got 20 episodes to work with each year, that helps. Like, these narrow 10 to 13 episode seasons, it doesn't do fans like us any favors.
It really doesn't.
It doesn't give us enough to sink our teeth into. So Prodigy is good in that aspect, where they have the time to take a detour here and to spend a whole episode exploring this aspect before jumping back into the main story. So I do like that. I want to go into a couple of the other characters
Okay.
in the season, but of course, starting off big, Chakotay. Like, what a redemption for that character, because he
Yeah,
had
gave him something to do.
7 years of just sitting on the bridge of Voyager playing with his iPad, and now he finally gets a real rich, important story that
Oh yeah.
he had more character development in this season Prodigy than he did in the 7 years he was a leading character on Star Trek
Yeah.
Voyager. And I've always loved Chakotay back in the day. I know there wasn't much to love about him because there wasn't much to him, but he was always one of my favorite characters on the ship. I briefly mentioned it before, but like Voyager has a very, very special place in my heart because it came out just before I was in like a very bad traffic accident back in the day. Like season one was maybe halfway through or just finished, and I was basically homebound for like 6 to 8 months, like in a back brace, all wrapped up, and I couldn't sleep because of all the medication, and I just watched Voyager all night long because I recorded the episodes as they came out. So
Yeah.
I felt like I was a member of that crew, and I've always loved Chakotay, and this is his character's redemption of showing what he could have been.
Yeah. I love the not quite father figure, but the definitely the mentor
Yeah,
role he took with Dal about halfway through the season, for a good solid 4 or 5 episodes.
Yeah.
Where he was, showing Dal what it meant to be Starfleet.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the kid had a pretty good idea. He just lacked the patience and he lacked the guidance.
Yeah. I was going to say the guidance was missing from him.
And Chakotay gave him that guidance. It's like, well, damn, Harry Kim could have used this.
Yeah.
Harry Kim might have made lieutenant if you'd.
I still say if they do a season
if you stepped
3,
up with him,
I just fingers crossed. It's just for me personally. I want Harry Kim to appear in season 3, and I want him to still be an ensign. I just that would just make me, and I want him to be the most decorated and respected ensign in the history of Starfleet. He's just turned down every single promotion.
He's pulling a Rutherford.
Yeah, basically. So he's known
me
as this legendary ensign from there, and everyone just always calls him Ensign Kim, and so he's just rode that train of fame of being an ensign. I would love it if like everyone comes back. What rank is he? And he's still an ensign, just for me personally. But I digress.
That frustrated me as a Air Force veteran, and I grew up in a service related family. I mean, I know, in a real organization, you got to get promoted or you're out.
And well, I don't think they have anywhere to send him out to if they don't promote him. Not in the Delta Quadrant.
Yeah, he was in fact stuck out in the Delta Quadrant. It's like, oh, what are you gonna do? Yeah. Fire me?
Yeah. Basically.
I mean, seriously, what are you gonna do? Fire me? But that aspect of Voyager always frustrated me. It frustrated me in Enterprise too. That Hoshi and Travis were forever ensigns.
Yeah. Like I know they said like I don't know if it was in an interview or at one of the conventions where they justified it, or they tried to justify it by saying like if they promoted everyone, then where would the lower ranks be? But it's like I think you can still get promotions and you still have a chain of command. I mean, it's not going to make the ship fall apart.
It is not. I mean, if they can, promote Pavel Chekhov between the series and the movies, then
or promote, demote, and then re-promote Paris.
The things that went on with Tom, but I mean that's that was the thing that I really loved about it, was Chakotay stepping up. It's like, oh, they made him a captain for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just because he got back to the Delta Quadrant and rejoined Starfleet after being in the Maquis. He, had a clue what he was doing. They just never showed it on the screen.
Yeah.
In 7 years. But
one of the failings of that show, yeah.
But I loved how he stepped up. Like I say, about halfway through when they're getting the protostar off that planet, and Dal is worried that he's a failure at 17.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm sort of going, dude, we're all failures at 17.
Some of us are failures at 2 to 3 times that age still.
I'm 58 years old, and I still feel like every now and then, like, what the hell am I doing here?
I need a Chakotay in my life to come and give me a little bit of guidance.
Having someone come along and kick me about, like, sometimes leadership is coil and rope. Where you need to be right now is sitting your butt in that chair over there, coiling rope.
Mm-hmm.
But I really, really appreciated that, and I appreciated how quick an impression it made on Dal. I mean, Chakotay gets thrown off the side of the ship, and the first thing Dal does is to pull a James Kirk and jumps off after him.
Yeah.
It's like the Dal we got at the beginning of the show would never have done that.
No. That shows growth.
And everybody's one of the complaints I kept seeing early on in season 2 is, oh God, Dal's up to his old tricks. Like, guys, said it before, I'll say it again. Dal is 17.
Right? They're kids.
They're kids.
Yeah.
The oldest one there, and that's mostly by virtue of being on a sleeper ship for God knows how many years,
yeah,
is Jankum.
Yeah. Jankum himself.
Yeah. Jankum almost predates the Federation. He might predate the Federation. We know that was never clearly established, but I think he predates the Federation because he didn't know what the hell the Federation was. He was a Tellarite. He was on a Tellarite sleeper ship.
Yeah, and if a Tellarite doesn't know what the Federation is, he had to be sleeping for a long time.
So, all of them showed, but they're all kids.
They're all kids, yeah.
Like I say, Jankum might be the oldest, and Jankum might be 20.
Yeah, God, how old is he? Who knows?
Chronologically, he's a couple of 100 years old, but biologically, he was in that sleeper ship for, which seems to have overshot their target.
Possibly. Just a bit.
But like I say, he might be 20 at the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Rocks 9. Yeah. Yeah, Dal is up to his old schemes because he's 17, and you have to hit some 17s over the head some 17-year-old kids over the head with a 2x4 multiple times before they get the point.
That's very
Ask
true.
me how I know.
Yeah. Oh, I teach about 300 of them daily, and for the past 20 years. So, yeah, seeing Dal act like that, there was no shock to me that he would
It's like,
still have those traits.
you know, actually, as a military veteran, there are a couple of moments here and there where Starfleet security had some very strange lapses for the benefit of the plot, but it is a kids show, and I let that ride.
Yeah, and it stays true to
Yeah.
being a kids show still. And you don't, if they made the characters who, like you said, they're all kids, if they made them like the just complete strict Starfleet officers that we know from previous series, it would not track with what they're trying to do. It would not track with how they were established in season one. It would not track with what you say they are now. They're students at a school.
Yeah.
And they are extraordinarily young students for the most part at this school. So of course they're still going to be acting like that. And they were not growing up on Federation worlds, preparing for life in the Federation.
Yeah.
This is thrust upon them. As we said in the beginning, they are Star Wars type characters who are now entering this rigid, structured, close to utopian Federation society, and they've never experienced that before.
Yeah. But you just, oh, I hate when that happens. I had a thought and it flittered away. It'll circle back. They usually do.
Come back eventually, right?
It'll circle back, and maybe we'll be in a position where it might even be when we're on camera and I can actually bring it up. But another thing that I found really interesting, because since the very beginning I have been fascinated with Zero.
Yeah.
I love the idea of having it's like, oh well, okay, Medusans and encounter suits are playable characters now.
Yeah.
It's like I love this idea. I love but I love where they went with it. It's like, okay, unlike most Medusans, I actually spend my time with all these corporeal beings. I wonder what that's like.
Yeah, and getting to explore that was interesting.
And the exploration of that, and the extremely unlikely girlfriend that he winds up with.
Yeah.
Hi. I'm a Medusan in an encounter suit. I'm dating this hot Vulcan chick over here with a very interesting non-Vulcan haircut. I really appreciated that she did not have the standard Vulcan bowl cut.
Now, I do want to talk about Majel, okay?
Me too.
I do.
I love her.
I was so glad they added a new character into the mix, but I do have a gripe about her. Like, every time she's speaking, I could not hear a Vulcan. So I was thinking, like, could she possibly be, like, part Romulan or something? Because they've been adding that element in quite frequently, but I never caught that. But every time she's speaking, there was just so much, there was, I don't know if you want to say attitude, but there was
some sass.
There was
some sass,
and it didn't strike me as logic.
They may have adopted some of the beta canon where there are, you've got the major Surakian sect, logic above all, suppress all your emotions, and then you've got other sects. Well, like they explored it briefly in Enterprise.
Yeah.
What did they call them? Vash Couture, I think they called those Vulcans without logic. And it was, I don't think I don't think, but you've got the ones that want to explore emotion, and then you've got there's a middle ground where they're trying to they still speak in terms of logic. Majel spoke often of logic.
Yeah.
But again, she's a kid.
She is a kid. She is a kid.
She's and times are changing, but there are some of the beta canon, and they never said this one way or the other. I think that's one of those things they want to explore more of. I think they said they've wanted to explore more with Majel now that they've got things going.
Yeah, I was just expecting there to be something mentioned, because as we said, like Prodigy season 1 from the start, it's basically introducing the core elements of what is Star Trek. So then when you bring your first big Vulcan onto the screen and have them not be a Vulcan.
Different. Yeah.
So that's breaking away, because if we're going with new viewers are coming in, they don't know Star Trek, you're giving them the wrong impression about what a Vulcan is as their first exposure. So that's why I kept thinking they might mention something in there, like, oh, this is why she has more attitude than most.
It's possible that she is of mixed heritage.
Could be, yeah. That's why I thought maybe season 3 would explore it if we got that, but I
would love to find out.
I
loved the character. I loved how she interacted, not just with Zero. I thought that was fun, though. It's like, oh, you've never noticed that, proximity to another telepathic being increases a Vulcan's psionic abilities, and it's like, and Zero's like, oh dear, what have I done? But I absolutely, loved this, young character trying to figure out herself. Same as, to an extent, as what Spock was doing 100 years ago, 100 plus years ago. I just really enjoyed the fact that she didn't have any clue who she was. She was forging a path just as strongly as any of the other kids. I love how she, took possession of her own path. She, rather than being rescued by Tysus in one of the middle episodes, they had met Wesley, but something else was going. I don't remember exactly when it happened, but they homed in on her comm badge. She threw the comm badge out to, and it's like, I have done this. I have made this choice. I have to follow through, which is a huge. I mean, you work with kids every day, so I mean, you know how big that kind of a decision is.
Oh my, yeah.
For a teenager.
Yeah.
Even a Vulcan teenager, it's like, okay, you have just watched her take her first step into being an adult.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I'm like, holy crap, man.
That's why I hope we get season 3, because we get all these elements that are started here. And it's like, we got these fascinating characters and a new character now with her. And
I want to know where this goes.
I want to know how they continue to grow. Like you said, there's complaints. People are saying they're not growing enough, but they're kids and they are growing. If you, like you said,
season
1 of Prodigy, Dal would never have jumped off the ship to save Chakotay. Yeah, he might still be acting like a kid. He might still be bored because that's not the kind of work he wants to do. That's not what his passion is about. He's still interested in it, but he's still going to respond the way a kid does. But you see his character is growing, and I want to see where they go from here.
You want to talk about character growth. 40 episodes of this show so far. 30 some odd of them, he's always talking about he's the captain. The last episode's like, I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I am not there yet.
Perfect.
You are.
Yeah.
I will sit here. I will back your play. I will tell you when I think you're screwing something up, just because I know you're going to tell me when you think I'm screwing something up. But you don't get that kind of growth in a lot of these shows.
No.
Yes. I love a lot of what they're doing, but none of the past 8 years, there's not been character growth of that caliber over such a short time. Tilly, maybe.
Tilly could be close compared to like how
Tilly,
we were introduced to her and where she's going.
Adira, to an extent, they could be seen to have grown some, but not the, just incredible degree of maturity that it took Dal Rael saying, I'm not ready for that. Show me a 17, 18-year-old kid who's that self-aware.
Especially one that is so brash and cocky just the previous season. Now with all
and
the things they've experienced.
Technically he still is, but he knows.
Oh, he still is.
And he knows enough to realize I need to settle down. I have seen this, this man, Captain Chakotay, who I respect enormously. I'll never tell him that. Yeah. He'll figure it out or he won't. But
he's matured. He's matured over the 2 years. He still is who he is, but he has that level of maturity now to recognize what his limits are.
Oh, hell. The Dal we had at the beginning of season 2 would not have been the one climbing that tower in the middle of a war with a lot of things shooting at him to plug in a damn cable so that this time rift can do what it's supposed to do. I will sing the praises of that character all day long. Just based on, it's like, holy cow, guys. And we talk a lot. We're talking a lot about Dal because there's just so much to talk about. But all of them,
the whole cast,
all of them,
they are.
I remember when the first season ended. I wrote on Twitter to the Hagmans and Aaron Waltke and a couple other people whose handles I had. I don't know them personally, but I just said, just watch the season 1 finale. I am so proud of these kids. And I had this exact same reaction at the end of the second season. I am so proud of these kids. I had nothing to do with anything they've done. I've got no right to be. But I have been with them on this journey for the past 40 episodes. And it's like, oh, guys. You know, Wesley says something to Dal. It's like, you know, the stuff I was telling you about hasn't happened yet.
I love that line. I love that line.
It's like,
yeah,
you know, all this glorious stuff that you guys do hasn't happened yet.
Right? What a great line.
And it's like, okay. But, you know, Jankum had more than a few moments of when they're, you know, the Aurelian guy had snuck that pad into the prison, and he's going, look, I've already told you this isn't going to help us get out. It's like, Jankum Pog begs to differ. And then he remote controls his cyber hand,
prosthetic hand, yeah.
and it's like, they even took my mitt. The hell, you know? You know, Jankum had his moments. Good Lord, the things, you know, Rock did not have as many, you know, super significant things. She had a lot of cool stuff.
I think she had more big moments in season 1.
She really did. Where you just see what you're dealing with, but I mean, she had you know, oh hi, we're gonna help the Klingons with the tribbles.
Yeah.
But I think the most growth we had was with Dal. I was really impressed with what they did with Zero.
Zero was a surprise. That was not the direction
they gave them so much to do.
Yeah.
So much to do. And he goes and does the Spock thing, and you're like, oh man. You know, of course, they were always kind of willing to do that. But like I said, that and just that out there, unlikely, but I'm 100% for relationship with Majel.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that was not on my bingo card.
Yeah, never would have guessed that.
That never in a million years would that have ever occurred to me as a writer.
You're right. It's a twist that you don't expect.
I would never have figured that one. I love the faith they put in Jankum.
Yep. Yeah.
It's like, you know, the doctor is offering them, you know, all these, you know, access to all these cyberneticists and things like that to come up with an alternate body. And he's going, I would prefer Mr. Pog. Okay.
Shows faith, belief in your friend.
You know, this is my brother. I would rather have him. So I mean, I was just thoroughly impressed with that. I want to ask you something. Did you have as much fun as I did watching John Noble get to play completely against type?
I don't know if I would even reflected on that at all.
He got to. I mean,
I don't think it's like ever even occurred to me. Yeah.
You know, you know, because the only real exposures I've had to John Noble that I know of was Denethor in The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Who was an absolutely terrible father.
Yeah.
fascinating character, but absolutely terrible human being.
Mm-hmm.
And the Diviner.
Mm.
Fascinating character, absolutely terrible person.
Season 1.
I mean,
yeah.
you can even kind of see where the Diviner is coming. You know, at least with the Diviner, you can see where he's coming from.
Yeah.
You don't agree with his methods, but you see where he's coming. I mean, I didn't even see what Denethor was thinking. Yeah.
I don't think anyone was. He was a little bit maybe trauma messed him up. Grief.
It could be. But then it's like, oh God, here we go. And Iltharon was this remarkable. He was a phenomenal parent.
I kept expecting, there was going to be a twist because you're expecting you're expecting that to be the like, you know, he was the bad guy. So I kept expecting
you're
that.
absolutely expecting something like that to happen.
And it never came.
To the credit of the writers on this show, it didn't.
Because again,
it did not
different
happen.
experience in his past.
You know, the defining event that turned him from this astronomer on in a race that really didn't want to acknowledge astronomy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the defining thing that happened didn't, because he met it. You know, oh, by the way, I'm your daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long story. I don't have time right now, but trust me. Here, let me show you this doodad that you, this doodad of magical goo that you gave me some other time, which is for you. You know, decades removed. And he just rolled with it. He's like, oh, cool. I'm a dad. This is great. Let's go. I love the fact that you had, you know, it gave him something different to do. Jamila Jamil with Essentia. Hi, I'm going to play 2 entirely different characters.
Yeah. That was the one thing.
It's like, I just, like say, I don't know that they hit with every swing.
No, of course not.
But they made these swings. And when they swung, they were not looking for a base hit. They were swinging for the fences.
But, well, that's the thing, too, with Essentia, where you see both versions of her. They are both equally passionate about saving the world, but you have the pure one who has not been corrupted by this terrible event in the past, trying to save the world as she has it now, versus the one who was twisted by the fate that her world suffered in her timeline, trying to save it in her own dark, twisted way. It's the same level of passion, but with a different heart behind it. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I did not bring that up, but I loved, and like I said, with the Diviner, and that kept expecting that twist, kept expecting that turn, but you see, these people are good in this time point. They are pure in this time point. They want what's best, and more or less the future Essentia is the one twisting them now and making them into the dark world. It's her own fault that it's coming on.
Yeah, I love the fact that, you know, both sides of the Civil War were being led by the same person.
You're right.
It's just, but I mean, like I say, they did not hit everything they swung at. But
No.
like I said, when they swung, like I said, they weren't going for base hits.
Nope.
And I admire that as a writer. I'm like,
they had grand ideas, and even the stuff that didn't work, it at least gave us something new, interesting, and just fascinating to latch onto. And now it's a part of Star Trek that more people can explore. We can explore in Star Trek Adventures. We could take so many elements that they threw at us here. I'm dying for the Prodigy source book whenever it comes out for Star Trek Adventures.
You and me both, man.
Can you imagine what's going to be in there and what we can use? I can't wait. Yeah.
I love the fact that we've got that in the license. I cannot wait to see. I want to get involved in that. It's like, Jim.
Jim, if you're watching,
Jim, you've got all my contact info.
Yeah.
I've already told you this, but I want in.
Yeah, you know where to contact him, Jim. You know where he is, and you see how passionate he is about Prodigy. You got the right man for the job. Now we're coming up to the end of our recording time here. Went a little bit over, but I mean, there's still so much have not said.
We could do this again sometime. Just touch on the stuff that we haven't.
Like we could do our addendums. Here's what we did mention last time. Could be a whole series. Hopefully, with new stuff coming out, maybe we could do this kind of stuff a little more frequently. And hopefully, again, what the goal has always been, but it hasn't really worked out because of time schedules of myself for this channel, would be doing it more episodic or at least not an entire season wrap up. You see how much we have to talk about. Like we could do this time easily per episode. So instead truncating it, maybe in the future we could do an episode or two and then do a recap. But absolutely. Before we stop here, before I have to close it all down, any final thought for season 2? Any final hopes for a potential season 3? What is on your mind right now with Prodigy?
Actually the overall things they've done with season 2, I was just so impressed with. I was very happy with how they kept season 2. Now that we're kind of free of the having to prevent the Solem Civil War and some of the timey-wimey shenanigans, I would love to see the crew of the Prodigy. I mean, with the nature of the beast in streaming these days is this huge connected story across the entire season. I'd love to see season 3 a little more episodic, a little more taking cues from Strange New Worlds or Lower Decks.
Yeah,
have an overarching story. I'm all for that. I've always I thought that was one of DS9's big strengths. They had these big arcing stories, but you had this chunk here, and then this chunk had nothing to do with it.
But it fleshed out the universe. It fleshed out the characters.
It fleshed out the world. It fleshed out the characters, especially the characters. But I'd love more directly character driven, more episodic. Actually, don't abandon the story arcs. I would love to see the crew of the Prodigy tackle some different things, do some exploration here. Oh my God, what have we found over here? Can we tie, can this little bit of thing that we've found here tie in somewhere later down the road to something in Picard or whatever, because we don't know exactly where in this whole thing. Well, we do know a little more exactly, because it's 13 years after Wesley was in the Academy, was in Nova Squadron. Because we found that out in one of the last episodes, where we found out that Mariner and Sito were friends. So we know about where Lower Decks sits.
Yeah.
Which is not quite where.
No. I think
they're not quite. They're not quite to where Prodigy is.
Not
but
yet.
I would love a little more interaction. I mean, I know to a certain extent the writers' rooms do talk to each other, but I think there could be better communication where, the new Borg threat and the living construct and the Texas class. Yeah, don't get me started. I'm a little peeved with
don't let it get to you. Don't let it get to you. Don't let it get to you.
It's like, okay, yeah, I had to make the bad guys the Texas class. Really? Thanks, Mike.
They were misunderstood.
But yeah, I would like to see some more interaction. I would love something mentioned in Strange New Worlds to turn up. They mentioned it here, and it's not that big a deal. But the Prodigy winds up interacting with somebody that, the Prodigy finds this comet from the second episode of Strange New Worlds, and the Prodigy has to, and for whatever reason, it's like they completely misunderstand what Pike and the Enterprise did in relation to this comet, and you still got the shepherds of this comet. So something like that. It does. That's just something that came to my mind. It's like, okay, what could possibly turn up? That really messed up society with the kid and the computer. That's got all these cities floating over a lava planet. It's like, why don't you guys just move? Something like that. I would love something that turns up in early Disco or Strange New Worlds or original series. I would love,
or Enterprise,
something from Enterprise. But I would love more interaction. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be some galaxy shaping thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, they've already encountered tribbles. They've already figured out how to keep tribbles from multiplying. Thank you, Rock Talk. That's another thing. I love just the sheer volume of callbacks.
Yeah.
And Easter eggs.
It's kind of like Lower Decks, but without the pure comedy slant.
Without the pure, yeah. Hi, we got a humpback whale named Jillian.
Yeah.
Who has been confirmed off camera to be the grandchild of George
Twitter.
And Gracie.
Yeah.
It's like,
right.
But my hopes for season 3 are a little more, some more self-contained stuff, and a lot of personal stakes. But I would like to avoid the Discovery trap of the galaxy endangering.
It's always
the least issue Discovery has ever had was the Klingon Federation War.
Right? Isn't that insane?
That was the lowest stakes they've dealt with they dealt with in 5 years.
Right?
You know,
And that's...
I'm upset. I'm one of these things we're gonna have to discuss, because you can watch Discovery season 5 and see where they were planning on going in season 6. I'm watching all this. It's like, okay, that's going to end up in season 6. There's not a season 6.
It's gone now.
So I'm hoping that while they keep the personal stakes high, make it important to the characters, but I don't, they've already saved the timeline.
And
that's,
they saved the Federation in season 1.
Yeah, that's something pretty impressive. That's something pretty impressive for a bunch of kids. Don't do that in season 3.
They could take it down a notch. And that's been a gripe of a lot of the newer Star Trek series. Just way too... Stakes are way too high.
They have avoided that trap so far in Strange New Worlds.
So far, yeah.
They don't have these cosmic level threats. They don't have control. They don't have the DMA. They don't have, progenitor technology. They got the Gorn, which is bad enough.
And they make the Gorn scary. They make them scary.
And that's bad enough.
Yeah.
And that is perfect.
And I think
you've got Pike figuring out, okay, my fate sucks, but I have seen what happens if I find a way to avoid that fate.
It's even worse.
It's way, way worse.
Yeah.
And that is the level I would like them to keep it on for Prodigy.
And with Strange New Worlds, we know what happens around this time. So if they threw in a threat that's a galaxy-wide threat or a Federation-wide threat, it's not going to work, because we already know the bad guy doesn't succeed.
Yeah.
If you keep the stakes at the appropriate level for the series, like right now where it left off with the Gorn in season 2, we don't know what's going to happen with those particular crew members. We don't know what their fates are, what the outcome of that's going to be. It is kept personal, it is kept character driven, and that's what makes a series that's in the middle of times we know and is well documented very well still have a cliffhanger, still be... You're on the edge of your seat trying to figure out what's going to happen next, waiting to see what happens next, because the stakes are appropriate. We don't need the galaxy to end every week.
Yeah, and that's actually, that's where I want, I want them to find something significant to them. Not the galaxy, not the Federation, maybe the star system they're in,
Yeah.
But
for
it's
their crew.
You've got a tiny little ship with 7 souls and a hologram on it. Find a way to keep that interesting.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of ways to do it.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
There's tons of ways to do that. And that's what I want to see for season 3. I want to see personal level. I want to see character level. I think that is where Disco failed the most for me. Was it was such a you're looking at things from such a high view.
Yeah.
I don't need the 10,000 foot view. I need the 100-foot view.
Right. Just keep it on the appropriate level for the show. That's So I'm hoping, I agree with you with that for Prodigy, but not just that, but the new series coming up, Strange New World season 3, Starfleet Academy, all of that stuff. I'm
really looking forward to see what they do with Starfleet Academy, just because I've had a crush on Holly Hunter for about 30 years.
Well, there you
it's
go.
like, oh, well, okay.
Now
Holly
you have
Hunter's
another
in
reason
Star
to
Trek
watch.
now. Life, I've got a whole new reason
to
get
Trekkie,
involved in this. Yeah.
Well, maybe when that comes out, we'll be doing more videos on that, or at least talking about it as more news is coming
I'm
out.
down for that. I'd be down for that.
I believe it. But Patrick, thank you so much for stopping by today and discussing this with me. I'm glad that we could finally do it. And
thank you for having me.
I hope we have more of these in the future. It's always fun to talk Trek when I get the chance instead of just talking
Indeed it is.
to myself. But for those of you still watching, thank you very much. What are your thoughts on Prodigy or Star Trek as it is now? Did you enjoy the show? Are you looking forward to hopefully Prodigy season 3? What would you like to see in it? Anything. As usual, just write a comment below. Find us on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now. Let's just keep talking. Patrick, of course, his channel is going to be linked down in the description below, so you could go check out his thoughts and his videos on Star Trek and Star Trek Adventures anytime. So thank you again, Patrick, and thank you for watching, everyone. See you next time, as usual.
Thanks for having me, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Peace. See you in the future. Bye.